The funny thing about this Doctor Strange shirt is that, like, the front of the shirt feels like it should be the back of the shirt. Like, the back of the shirt feels like it should be the front. So we finally have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This film's been gathering hype ever since it's been announced because obviously everyone thought this was going to be a big, massive multiverse film. I mean, multiverse is in the title, and Kevin Feige for years has been like, oh, Doctor Strange 2 is going to be this big, epic thing. And I'll tell you what, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is a good film. I liked it, but I don't think it was anything super special that Kevin Feige was hyping it up to be. Don't go into this film expecting this to be the cameo-filled fest that you have probably been believing it to be. It's not that. It is very much a sequel to Doctor Strange. But the only thing I'd say is special about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is Sam Raimi's direction. I mean, Sam Raimi returns to the big screen after, I think, Oz the Great and Powerful, but it's been ages since Sam Raimi has released a feature film. And oh my god, does he bring such a life and energy to the direction in this film. You watch this film and you go, wow, the other MCU movies just lack so much visual style compared to Sam Raimi. Like, Sam Raimi is a master, and you can just tell the enthusiasm and passion he has for film just by the way he moves the camera. The camera work in this movie is unlike any MCU film, and it's fantastic. This is easily, I think, the best looking MCU film, and the best cinematography the MCU has ever had. Every camera move is so purposeful and specific, and in a lot of ways it was very stylized. It felt very pulpy. Like, the whole time I was watching this film and things were happening, particularly the action sequences, and I was like, this feels very much like a stylish pulp film. It's very distinct, and I love Sam Raimi for that. Sam Raimi came in with his, veteran filmmaking muscles and just flexed all over the MCU films. He is just... The direction in this film is fantastic. And another thing too that I just love about the cinematography in this film is that Raimi makes the MCU films look filmic. This film is so cinematic looking. There is such a unique and stylized look to the color grade. It's great. And the thing that I just found funny is that you get to the post-credit scenes, and I don't think Sam Raimi directed them, or if he did, they clearly just didn't color correct them or color grade them, because you get to the post-credit scenes and the visual style is completely different, and it's like, oh, wow, we're back to the bland MCU visual style. For me, the best part of the film was the first act. I thought it was really strong and solid. Sam Raimi comes out of the gate with an amazing opening shot, and then you have the sequence where Stephen Strange goes to Christine Palmer's wedding, and it's really good because it's character-driven. Stephen Strange goes there, he talks to Rachel McAdams' Christine Palmer, and it's very much the two of them sort of laying all the groundwork on the table of Stephen Strange's character arc in the film. Not only is he having to battle his darker and inner demons, but also he has to learn how to grow as a person, because he has been stuck now as Doctor Strange, the master of the mystic arts, and he is living his life being the hero and sacrificing things. But at the end of the day, he's still this cold and sort of reluctant hero in a way. Like, he does everything for the greater good, but there is something about Stephen Strange just inherently that is cold. Very much the self-righteous and pompous character we saw in the first film. Like, he's grown a bit, where he is now more heroic, but also he is still inherently that same guy. And that's what I did really like about this film too. Stephen Strange's character arc is really good. It's him learning to grow as a person and be a better person. And I like that because at the beginning we established things like he isn't very respectful to Wong, who is now the Sorcerer Supreme, and he doesn't bow, he doesn't follow tradition, and then obviously by the end of the film he does that. And I love the visual metaphor you have in the third act where Stephen Strange fights his darker half. I was actually quite relieved to see that Stephen Strange had a good character arc in this film, because I remember Benedict Cumberbatch had an interview, I think just before they did reshoots on this film, and he was just like, I don't know what's going on, because everyone's like so obsessed with the cameos and stuff that even on set I'm not too sure where we're going. Does Stephen Strange have a good character arc and all that? And thankfully he does have a good character arc. It's just that the film surrounding him is uneven. And of course you've got my waifu, my bae, Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch, and she is fantastic in this film. Her performance is exceptional. I mean, not only does she play the evil Scarlet Witch, but you also see her as Wanda in another dimension. And then of course you just have all the physicality she brings to the role. She is just perfect and just, she's great. The only problem I have with Wanda in this film is the writing. Like, she's not terrible, but in the second act I started to feel that Wanda just became very one note. It was just, I need my kids, I need to get my kids, I need to get my kids. And that's the thing, it's only in the second act where I thought she was one note, because at the beginning of the film I thought she was very compelling. When Stephen Strange confronts her at the beginning and then she reveals that she's been corrupted by the Darkhold and lays out her evil plan and all that, she's very good, and Wanda's arguments were very compelling. Even though she is in the wrong, and she is very clearly in the wrong, I thought that the way the film wrote her initial motivation was very compelling, that Doctor Strange does all these things that seem very unethical, but at the end of the day it's for the greater good. But then when Wanda wants to do something that is selfish and breaks the magical rules like Stephen Strange, she is labelled the enemy. And of course, Wanda is completely in the wrong, but I like the fact that she believes that she is right. In WandaVision, Wanda was not the hero, she was the bad person. We understood where she was coming from, but she basically enslaved an entire town full of people and mentally tortured them, unwillingly, but she still did it, all because she wanted to live this perfect family life with Vision and her children. And another problem I do have actually with this film is the lack of Vision. Wanda is very much interested in her kids, but she doesn't bring up Vision at all. There is no mention of White Vision. There is no inclusion of Vision in her dream world. And that's the weird thing too, because Wanda and WandaVision loved Vision and wanted Vision back as well. But in this film, the writer Michael Waldron, who wrote Loki, and for all you who don't know, I don't really love Loki, he kind of just ignores the fact that Vision was important to Wanda in this film. And that's what I think is a weak point of Doctor Strange 2, is the script. Michael Waldron's script, to me, is not that sharp. The beginning is very good and feels very Sam Raimi, because I think Sam Raimi got a hold of that opening and was just like, okay, let's make this poignant and impactful, let's make this character base for Stephen Strange. And then you get into the middle of the film, and it's just kind of, it goes on for a bit, and then you bring in characters like America Chavez. I always thought it was pronounced America because that's a Latino name, but apparently it's America, because I think America Chavez in the comics becomes Captain America. I think. I don't know too much about the character. All I know is that I read a couple of issues of, it was like Spider-Man or something, but like America Chavez shows up, and I was like, okay, who's this character? But yeah, America Chavez is in the film, and she's a good character, and she is there to help Stephen Strange grow as a person, and I like the dynamics she has with our universe's Doctor Strange. I think that's cool, but at the end of the day, I don't know, like, I didn't love her. Like, she's fine, and she is a good character to help Stephen Strange grow as a character. But yeah, she kind of just feels like a plot device. And I think most of my issues mainly stem from the second act of the film. It just felt like, oh, it's Doctor Strange and America Chavez just hopping from dimension to dimension. And then they run into the Illuminati, and then we have Wanda being evil. And then we have a bunch of horror-esque sequences, which are all fantastic. I mean, once again, Sam Raimi's direction is just incredible. I was watching that second act, and I was like, give Sam Raimi a fantasy epic, because my guy will just knock it out of the park. Like, Raimi's visual storytelling is just fantastic. The effects that he utilizes from the first Doctor Strange, you know, the whole empty Escher and the kaleidoscope effect, he brings that into this film in like the second and first act, and it's incredible. And it's like, give this guy a fantasy epic, give him like a horror epic, because oh my god, he just knocked it out of the park. Like, I would love to see Sam Raimi do Spider-Man 4, because the opening fight scene that happens after the wedding is genuinely fantastic, and the way Sam Raimi moves the camera and choreographs the fight visually is just fantastic, and it just gave me Spider-Man 2 vibes. Like, you have Doctor Strange and Wong fighting on the side of the building, and they're fighting the big tentacle monster with the big eye, and the way he is moving, the way the camera is moving, it's like, yes, this is the Sam Raimi I love from the Spider-Man films, and it's so great. Like, that's the thing. The best part of Doctor Strange 2 is Sam Raimi's direction. And the whole time I was sitting there watching this fight, I was just like, give Sam Raimi Spider-Man 4. Let him do it, because he's just going to knock it out of the park. And I want to see Sam Raimi operate outside the MCU realm, because I think that's the thing too. In the script, it has the MCU-isms, it has the cutaway jokes, it has the things where, yep, you've clearly reshot this to make this either funny or to ease the tension, and it's just like, no, keep the stakes going. The MCU just has this pattern and this formula, and it's fine, it works for them, but just, I don't know. I kind of just want more from Marvel right now, because it's just kind of stale. Every film feels like we're doing the same thing over and over and over again. There are a couple of visual differences, but overall we're doing the same thing. Like, the way we wrapped up Wanda's character arc in this film was very much just the Icarus character arc from Eternals. Like, she sacrifices herself to destroy the temple and essentially kill herself, and that's it. And it's kind of like, oh, I've seen this, we did this in Eternals. And then getting onto what people thought was the selling point of this film, which is the cameos. The cameos are fine. The Illuminati reveal was fine, and there are a couple of cool moments, like John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, which I thought was cool, and I enjoyed it. I was like, yeah, that's cool, and then he dies, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then you have Patrick Stewart as Professor X, Charles Xavier, And again, it's cool. He's in the yellow wheelchair from the 90s animated show. And when he does his mental telepathy, it's the, sonic wave effects from the 90s show. And they pretty much just play the 90s X-Men theme when he enters. It's all like do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And I won't lie, I thought that was really cool. Danny Elfman's score actually in this film is pretty good. But yeah, that in the score, it made me giddy, I'm not gonna lie. And an interesting cameo I thought was the return of Black Bolt from the Inhumans TV show. Like, I thought that was so crazy. Like, he's in a comic accurate costume, which is cool. But like, he shows up and he's part of the Illuminati and you're just like, oh, cool, I guess. Like, I don't think anyone like particularly asked for that, but yeah, that's pretty cool. And then the rest of the members of the Illuminati was just kind of fine. Like, you have the return of Lashana Lynch as Maria Rambeau, and she's the Captain Marvel of this universe, and she's fine. And then you have Haley Atwell's Captain Carter, and it's like, okay, cool. That's kind of it. Oh, and Chiwetel Ejiofor is back as Mordo, but he's back as, what was it, Earth 338's Mordo? And it's kind of like, okay, cool, so we kind of just dropped the Mordo subplot from the end of Doctor Strange, where he's trying to kill all the sorcerers, and that's, like, they don't follow up on that from Doctor Strange 1, they kind of just sidelined Mordo as, oh yeah, he now hates me, and that's it, and we have Mordo in this film who is a different dimension Mordo, and it's like, okay, but what about the actual Mordo we saw in the first Doctor Strange film? And a pet peeve I kind of have is that the MCU writers keep labeling the MCU as Earth 616, and it's like, it isn't. I swear they established years ago that the MCU was like 1610, and it's like, this film definitively had them go, nope, it's Earth 616, and I'm like, no, that's the comic universe. What? Like, that's a weird thing I find with the MCU, is that, like, whilst they pay homage to the comics, they kind of just seem like they're trying to replace and overwrite the comics. Like, that's the thing I have with Marvel Comics in general, where in the more recent years, Marvel Comics decided to start taking massive influences from the MCU, and now the MCU is sort of just taking over what Marvel Comics actually is, and I'm not a fan of that. But in regards to the cameos, whilst it was disappointing, I don't hate the fact that this isn't a cameo-filled fest film, because at the end of the day, this is a sequel to Doctor Strange, and I appreciate the fact that it is a sequel to Doctor Strange. Cameos don't make your films good. Like, the reason why Spider-Man No Way Home works was not because Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire showed up as cameos and, we got the cheap thrills. It wasn't that. It was the fact that they showed up and they were poignant and integral to the story. Like, without them, the film's story would not have worked. And if Doctor Strange 2 was just meant to be cameos galore, it would have detracted from the story massively. Like, the cameos we got were cool, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that this film wasn't heavily filled with cameos, because at the end of the day, it's Doctor Strange's story and Doctor Strange's film. That being said, I do have a pet peeve with Marvel Studios for pretty much trying to advertise this film as something bigger than it actually is. Like, that to me is very misleading, and I don't like that. Like, I love and respect Kevin Feige. I think he's a genius producer who knows exactly what his fans want, but he also is very misleading in his new marketing tactics for the MCU, specifically in Phase 4. Like, when he said WandaVision was super impactful and was going to heavily impact Doctor Strange 2, whilst it does in terms of it informs Wanda's character, you kind of don't need to watch WandaVision entirely to understand Doctor Strange 2, because, I mean, if you haven't seen the show, you can kind of just put the pieces together in your brain as the film goes along. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I liked the fact that it was a Doctor Strange sequel. The Illuminati cameos were cool enough. I thought that was fine. But overall, I like the fact that this was a Doctor Strange story, and obviously, Benedict Cumberbatch is fantastic as Stephen Strange as always. Like, he's perfect casting. He's never given a bad performance in the MCU films. He's great. Elizabeth Olsen is, again, just fantastic as Wanda Maximoff, although I do think her character is a little bit one note in the middle of the film. Danny Elfman's score is fantastic, and the cinematography is just beautiful. Like, once again, to me, the main standout of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness was Sam Raimi's direction. It was so good. In fact, one of my favorite moments that I haven't mentioned is when Wanda is dreaming about her kids. She wakes up and the lighting is very high key, and then all of a sudden as she wakes up and the camera is dollying out, and I think it's also parallaxing, but the camera's like dollying out and then the lighting goes from high key to very low key, and you're just like, oh, Sam Raimi, you beautiful legend. Like, I love that. He's just visual storytelling at its finest. And the post-credit scenes are like, they don't really seem to tease the larger story of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's very much teasing Doctor Strange 3. You have Charlize Theron appearing as Clea or something, who's like Doctor Strange's love interest. Like, I don't know. And then the last one is a continuation of Bruce Campbell's cameo from earlier in the film, which I thought was great. Like, I love seeing Bruce Campbell in this. I was like, it's not a Sam Raimi film if Bruce Campbell isn't in the film. And I remember him being a troll on Twitter and in interviews just being like, oh, I think they cut my role from the film because of all the cameos. And it's like, oh, Bruce, you beautiful troll. But yeah, Doctor Strange 2 is a good film. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It's just not what Marvel Studios was promising it to be, which is fine because it's a good Doctor Strange sequel, but also kind of false advertising. But it's also accentuating the problem I'm currently having with Marvel Phase 4, which is essentially, it's not really building up to anything. It's just a bunch of movies that are fine, but that's it. There's nothing there that's making me go, wow, I really can't wait to see what Marvel Studios does next, because it just feels like they're doing the same thing over and over again. Yes, they're doing different characters, but the stories they're telling are more or less the same thing. Even when we get something that is tonally or visually distinct like Moon Knight or WandaVision, it again kind of just falls into the MCU formula, into the same traps that the movies do, and it's kind of like, do something different, do something new. Whilst you got Sam Raimi to direct this film, the script for this film isn't anything new or spectacular. The reason why I think this film is just visually distinct is because you got Sam Raimi to do it. Sam Raimi, who is a master of visual storytelling. Like, the only film in Marvel Phase 4 that I've thoroughly enjoyed and thought is a fantastic film is Spider-Man No Way Home, because Spider-Man No Way Home was a celebration of 3 generations of Spider-Man coming together, and it told a really poignant story for Tom Holland's Peter Parker. It's a fantastic film. Like, yeah, it's got plot holes up the wazoo and all that, but still, at the end of the day, Spider-Man No Way Home felt like we were achieving something. Doctor Strange 2, apart from being a good Doctor Strange sequel, is kind of nothing special apart from the fact that Sam Raimi directed it. But those are just my thoughts on Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. What did you guys think? Did you guys love it? Did you hate it? Were you disappointed? Was this exactly what you were expecting? Let me know in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, follow me on social media, all that good stuff. And until we meet again, see you guys next time.